Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready Careers in Human Resources. Before we get going with today's event, I'll take care of some housekeeping, do the land acknowledgement, and tell you a little bit about Work Ready. So, if you can hear me and see the slide up on the screen, then you're good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing or seeing me or seeing the slide up on the screen, do let me know in the chat and I will do my best to assist. If you'd like to listen to this presentation on the phone, that is an option, and you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 883 1520-4756 and the passcode 123123. You may have noticed that the mics and videos for attendees are disabled, and that is so that everyone can focus on our presenter for the day. We do, however, very much welcome your questions and comments. So if you do have questions, by all means, put them in the Q&A. That's the box with the that's the box with the it says Q&A on it, and that way we can keep track of your questions and not lose them as the chat scrolls. And if you have comments or responses to questions from our presenter, then put those in the chat. That's the one with two little speech bubbles, and we'll be able to see those. All right, now it's time for the land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multigenerational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kizh Nation, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. All right, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. So Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job and improve their work situation and plan a more sustainable career path. We're doing that in two ways. One is we lend out hotspots and laptops for 6-week loans out of 27 library locations, breaking down one barrier to applying for a job and getting online training. And two is we provide virtual events just like this one on a wide range of work-related topics, from basics like resumes, cover letters, interviews, to deep dives into various careers and other subjects that help you succeed at work. And you can see around probably between 80 and 100 of those past programs on our YouTube playlist. It's on YouTube channel. It's the Work and Career playlist. And you might see videos that are of interest to you or people you know. And by all means, watch those, share those, comment on them, like them, subscribe to our channel, and benefit from the work that our presenters have done throughout the past few years. The Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And I do also want to share with you the event we have coming up for you next week, and that is Work Ready in-depth tour of Google Docs. If you're interested in learning more about this word processing platform that rivals Microsoft Word and is free to access with a Google account, by all means, join us Tuesday, September 3rd at 11 a.m. I will be taking you on a full tour of Google Docs, that what you'll see on the entire screen, the different features, and then I'll show you some practical applications of Google Docs. It is, of course, a free program, and you are welcome to watch all or part of it, and then it'll be on YouTube so that you can review the program afterward. And if you're interested in more library programs, you can head over to our website at lacountylibrary.org. On the top right-hand side, you can click events, and that'll give you the in-person programs. That'll give you the virtual programs for all ages, kids, young adults, older adults, all absolutely free. And if you're only interested in virtual events like this one, you can go to that website again, lacountylibrary.org, and hover over the events button. You'll see a little drop down that says virtual programming. Click on that, and that'll give you all of our virtual events hosted on Zoom, and also free and for all ages. All right, and now it's time to get going with today's program, Work Ready Careers in Human Resources. And to do that, I'm going to introduce our presenter for the day. Sherine Collins is a human resources lead advisor at Capital Group with experience in talent management, talent acquisition, and compensation within various financial services companies. Starting her professional career as a teacher, she is passionate about developing and supporting others in reaching their career goals and has dedicated herself to understanding the complexities involved in managing and developing talent. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Dartmouth College and a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from Sacred Heart University, complemented by her SHRM CP certification. I'm going to post what that means. Outside of her professional life, Sherine is passionate about sports, both playing and watching, and enjoys traveling, exploring new cultures, and trying diverse cuisines. Her interests in these areas not only provide a well-rounded perspective, but also inspire her approach to human resources. For more information or to connect with Sherine, she can be reached at sherine.collins@gmail.com. Sherine, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Oleg. I'm going to pull up my presentation. All right. Are you all seeing okay?
Yep, everything is coming through visually
Won-
perfect and loud and clear.
Wonderful. Well, hi, everyone. I am so excited to be with you all today to talk about careers in HR. As Oleg mentioned, my name is Sherine Collins, and we have plenty to cover today on this topic. So let's jump right in. So to kick off, I'm going to go through the agenda and a few housekeeping items. The plan for today will be to tell you a little bit about me before diving into what is HR, and then the many different areas that make up a well-rounded HR department at a company. That will be the bulk of our time today, but once we wrap that up, we'll talk through some recommendations for further education and how to begin or transition your career into HR. Um, I also want to mention that we'll be using the chat today. I'll prompt some questions for you, so feel free to put your answers in the chat. And then if you have any questions throughout the presentation, also please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll get to those at the end. And then lastly, I do want to note that human resources is a very broad area and it can be structured in many different ways across industries and companies. So my goal for today will be to give you as much information as possible for you to get a good understanding of human resources. But you might have had different experiences in your professional career that might shape the way that you've interacted or worked with HR. So with that, a little bit about me. As Oleg mentioned, I got my education on the East Coast at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. I got my bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from Sacred Heart University in Connecticut. I also recently completed my SHRM certification last year to become SHRM certified. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the education section of this presentation. In my professional role today, I am an HR generalist at Capital Group. And then I've also worked in HR at Franklin Templeton and Legg Mason, which are all companies within the financial services industry. I have a little bit of experience of transitioning into HR as I was a teacher before my time in HR. I taught fourth grade in New York and had a wonderful experience with that before transitioning into HR. And then I'll touch on a few of my hobbies. I love to play and watch sports. This is my fiance and I at an LA Clippers game. And then we also love to travel and try new foods. This is some sushi we had on a recent trip to Japan. So I'll just stop there and kick off with if anybody has any of those same interests or enjoy traveling, watching sports, or if we even have any Clippers fans out there, we'd love to hear from you in the chat as we go through here. All right. And then with that, we'll jump into careers in HR. All right. So what is human resources? Until robots take away our jobs, really the constant between every company is that there has to be at least one person working there. We don't have any companies that are completely driven by technology or don't need any human resources to work there. So because of this, you'll find that HR roles and departments are in every industry and really in most companies in some form. Human resources is the area of a company that supports and manages all things people related. This includes hiring, firing, benefits, pay, and talent development. One of the goals of HR is to ensure that you have a good experience working at a company. And this helps the company's reputation and their brand. And it also ensures that potential employees that are looking at working at the company also want to work there. This helps the company grow and be productive. So I want to touch on something called the employee life cycle. All of the events that occur throughout your interactions with an employer is called an employee life cycle. And HR's job is to manage and support all of the events that can occur at an employee's time in the company. So what does that look like? I want you all to think back to the last time you submitted an application for a job. You might have gone onto the website and searched for the job, or maybe you saw them on LinkedIn and looked at their profile. Or you might have had a friend reach out to you and say, hey, I have this job at my company. I'd love for you to look into it. Well, your experience from that moment interacting with a company can really kick off the start of an employee life cycle. So what I have here is just a sample life cycle of what it could look like working at a company. There are millions of different paths you can take, a million different things that can happen while you work for a company. And this is just one example. What I'm going to do with this example is walk you through how each of these different steps in the life cycle is managed by different areas of HR. So starting with that in the hiring process, you might apply for a role, you interview with a recruiter. That recruiter is likely part of a talent acquisition team. The recruiter likely reached out to you, and after you applied, you're guided through the interviewing process. You've met with the hiring manager, and congratulations, you get hired. So you start at the company, you're really excited, and you might go through a process called onboarding. And in this process, you're likely meeting new teammates. You might do training, and this is likely done through the talent development team putting together either a program for you or having resources for you in collaboration with your manager. You may also get an employee handbook, and that will tell you all the rules and policies of working at the company. And this was likely put together by the employee relations team. Lastly, the benefits team will probably reach out to you to submit a bunch of different documents. It might include, your benefits enrollment, your 401k deductions, and they might need some emergency contacts from you. But they want all of the people data that's needed to make sure that your start at the company is what you need. So over the next year, you work really hard, you've met all the people you needed to, and your boss lets you know that you've earned a promotion. Yay! So before your boss has that conversation with you, your boss has likely worked with HR and utilized some of the HR programs to ensure the details of the promotion are solidified. That might include an evaluation of your performance and your readiness, which is done through talent development programs. And then your HR business partner and compensation team might come together to determine your pay increase and what your new job title will be. The next year, you have some really great, exciting news. It just keeps going. You have decided to grow your family and you need to go on a leave of absence. So the benefits team would be the team that would provide you with the information, including, how much time you're able to take for your leave. They might tell you how much you'll be paid during your time, whether you'll be paid during your time. And then they might help you enroll your new family member into your benefits once they're born or adopted into your family. You also may find that you need support. And the DE&I team comes to you and tells you, we have an employee resource group for working parents, and they help to provide tips and support and different resources on how to balance working life with kids. So you go on your leave of absence, you come back in 2022 and inspiration strikes you and you decide to kick off your photography business. Um, and you've asked your manager to take on a part-time schedule at work. You can no longer do both full-time. The benefits and compensation team would help you learn about what your prorated benefits might look like on a part-time schedule, and maybe they will adjust your salary with that. And then your HR business partner might work with your manager to ensure that the business can accommodate your part-time schedule. So they want to make sure that the gaps that you might be not able to fill will be filled by maybe hiring a new person or having other people on the team pick up some of the work. 2023 comes around, you go back to your regular full-time schedule, and you're put on an important project and you just nail it. and the company decides we'd like to reward you with a big bonus for the year. So the talent development team likely had the programs in place to assess your performance on the project, and then also to give you the recognition of the amazing work that you did on the project, whether it be a board that people can post about your amazing work or a gift that you can pick out at the end of the year. The talent development team would likely have those programs in place. And then compensation would help to administer the bonus within one of their already existing bonus programs. And then lastly, to wrap up the employee life cycle, your photography business takes off and you decide, I cannot stay another day at this company. I want to run my business full time. As you offboard, you may have an exit interview with your HR business partner, really to get feedback for the HR business partner to get feedback on your employee experience and to understand the areas of the company that may need some improvements. And then payroll and benefits would likely help you with, when you'll get your final pay and, when your health benefits might end after you leave the company. All right, so that's the employee life cycle. I'd love to ask, and you can put these answers in the chat. In your current roles or any roles in the past, how have you experienced your employee life cycle? Did you frequently interact with HR? And I know a lot of time with HR can typically be seen as a bad thing, but as you've seen in this example, there are, great things that happen across your employee life cycle. So would love to hear high, medium, low, how much you've interacted in the past with HR. Okay, see low, medium, high, minimally. So it looks like a mix. Um, some high, some low. That makes sense. All right, so we can move on. So now I'm going to dive into each of the areas in HR that you can have a career in. Not every company is going to have all of these areas of HR, but this should give you a good idea of maybe what you would like doing or you wouldn't like as much. And we're going to start off today with talent acquisition or recruiting, as it's typically the start of an employee life cycle. This area of HR is responsible for bringing in really strong candidates into the organization, and that's done through open roles. If you were to work as a recruiter, here's what the process might look like. So a manager just had an employee leave. The person won the lottery and they don't need to work anymore. And now the manager needs a replacement for the role. The recruiter might meet with the hiring manager and ask questions about, what they're looking for in a new hire. And this is called an intake meeting. Some of those questions might include, what kind of skills would your ideal candidate have? Where will they be located? Can they work remotely or do they have to be in an office? And can we sponsor someone for immigration? So as a recruiter, you're the recruiter, you're getting all this information from the hiring manager, and now you get to play the exciting process of matchmaker. You post the role, you have the job description and all the details of the role, and you start sourcing candidates from different systems. You might have people apply through LinkedIn. You might be getting employee referrals from different areas of the company. And so now you have likely a decent sized pool of candidates to choose from, and you're reviewing their resumes, looking at their skills and experiences, and you start screening candidates. And you screen the ones that you think might be a good fit for the role. You ask them preliminary questions about their experience and backgrounds. You're on a call. And then you send this information along to the hiring manager and interview panel. This next step in the process will likely involve the hiring manager and the interview panel interviewing really the top candidates out of the pool of candidates that you provided to them. And you might not be as involved in the interviewing, but in this part of the process, you'll likely support them with scheduling interviews. You might pass along some thank you notes from the candidates, and then you might facilitate debrief meetings. Really that go through, what did we like, what did we not like, what people might need a little bit more training versus others. And you're really debriefing on the interviews and helping them decide on the best candidate. All right, we then get to the offer hire stage, which is the exciting part. As a recruiter, when you put together an offer and you hire that best candidate, you get to change someone's life by offering them a job, which is really exciting. I remember when I was first interviewing for my first job out of college, I was so nervous. I was planning to live very far away from my family, and I knew that I had to be self-sufficient in one of the biggest cities in the world, New York City. And it was my last semester of college. I really wanted to find a job before I graduated. And I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It felt like a really big decision. I remember I was walking out of the nail salon when I got a call from the principal of the school that I wanted to work at and received the exciting news that they wanted to offer me the job. And it truly changed my life. Although I didn't stay in teaching and continue my career in teaching, it really, set up the building blocks for me to have a successful career. And, the saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That was my one step, thanks to the recruiter and the principal that I worked with to get my first job. So if you want to take on that job of, getting to offer somebody the first step in their career or maybe the fifth step in their career, recruiting might be for you. And some roles that you can go into in talent acquisition include being a recruiter. You can be a campus recruiter where you're looking for candidates that are early career college students, or you might want to be an executive recruiter and you're recruiting for the CEO of companies or, the leadership team. You could also be a coordinator that helps to schedule interviews or track referrals from employees, or an analyst that helps kind of slice and dice recruitment data, um, such as like the average time it takes to fill an open role, or how many candidates you might have had in a certain region of the country. So another question for you all. Many of you have likely met with a recruiter to get a new job. And if you've had experiences with a good one, what made the experience good? Did they take the time to explain the role? Did they help you understand what the compensation structure was? I'd love to hear in the chat kind of what made a recruiter a good one in your eyes when you were on the side of interviewing for a role. Great. I see follow-up feedback, communication, friendliness, openness. Yep, follow-up. Honest about their work environment at the company. They didn't sugarcoat it. Love that. All right. Well, in the interest of time, I'll move on. But if this is an area that you're interested in, maybe take notes of some of the things that made a great recruiter so that when you do go into this role, you know what people want to see out of a recruiter. And thank you for your responses. All right. Moving on to talent management and talent development. Now, there are many different areas of talent management and talent development, as you can see here. And this area of HR is focused on developing the employees in order to optimize productivity and ensure a well-functioning workforce. If you're in a talent management role, as you can see here, there's many different categories of work that you can do, and you might wear different hats in this role. You might do all of these things, or you might specifically only work in one of these areas. I'm just going to touch on a few here. Um, for learning and development, that area is responsible for training and learning within the workforce. And they may put together the trainings themselves, whether they're company focused, or they might partner with other companies that offer trainings. Some examples of this could include, customer service roles. You might have training for the salespeople in your organization, or you might have anti-bias training for managers that are interviewing candidates. Jumping to organizational effectiveness, this area helps to structure teams for optimal effectiveness, and they really help teams work together well. Um, they might recommend how many managers a team should hire based on what the team's goals are, or they might facilitate a personality assessment to help teammates learn about each other's work styles. Going to performance management, you might help managers provide feedback to their employees and coach managers on how to develop their best performers. And then with succession planning, this area helps to ensure that there are contingencies in place for leadership in the company. If an emergency happens, who would be able to pick up the work? And then it also is an area that helps to plan for those who are next in line for leadership roles. It's making sure that those people are being developed and are getting ready over the next couple of years to be the next leader in those roles. And then lastly, I'll touch on workforce planning, which is an area that's used to predict and prepare for the workforce needs of the company. So for example, if the company is growing rapidly, planning can really help map out how many employees might be needed in a few years based on what the company's strategy and goals are. So some potential roles in talent development include being a talent development analyst. You could be a talent development program manager. You could be a learning and development consultant. There are a lot of different areas, as you see here, that can be sitting in the talent management or talent development space. All right. So when I first started off my career in HR, I was very curious about compensation. It seemed like this black box that many people didn't talk about, and it was almost a taboo topic. Um, and I had a lot of questions when I started in HR about compensation. I really just wasn't sure why people were being paid hourly versus salaried, or why some people had commissions and others didn't. And then I just wasn't sure how to even ask those questions. So, benefits, compensation, and payroll is a really great area for you if you are curious about how compensation and benefit decisions are made in your organization and really how they come together to create a total rewards package for employees. And then I would also like to note that payroll sometimes sits in their own department, depending on how the company is structured. So you might see payroll with HR, but you might see it also outside of HR in a different department within the company. So some things you might be asked to do if you're working in this area of HR include keeping up with pay transparency laws. As you might know, different states, including New York, California, and Colorado, require you to post salary ranges on job descriptions when you have a job posting. Um, and so companies have to be in compliance with some of those pay transparency laws. And a lot of the time, if you work in this area, you're helping to keep up with those laws. Other areas include, Family Medical Leave Act that you'll want to keep up with, or paid family leaves. Those laws can be different in different states as well. You may also work to determine how much jobs are worth in different locations around the globe. One job in San Francisco might be paid differently than a job in the middle of Minnesota. And then same globally, a job in Europe might be different than a job in the US. And then if you work at a company with commissions, you may be working to put together a commission structure that helps reward employees appropriately. There's many different areas within benefits, compensation, and payroll that you can work in. And then with payroll, you're likely working to, audit paychecks, make sure that deductions are coming out of paychecks correctly, and the paperwork aligned with, you know, direct deposits and paying out a check. So some possible roles in this area include becoming a benefits manager, and you would be helping to keep abreast of, upcoming benefit offerings for employees. I know pet insurance is an up and coming one. Um, or you could be a compensation analyst that models out promotion increases. You could be a payroll specialist that, as I mentioned, audits a paycheck or, helps support the administration of paychecks. And then as a compensation manager, you might help set that compensation philosophy of a company in the sense that we want to pay as much as possible so that we can get the best talent, or we don't mind paying middle of the road and getting just the great employees that are okay with the pay that we offer. So this area of HR might interest you if you want to have a background, if you have a background or would like to learn more about, administration, data analysis, and then if you might maybe have some health or financial literacy in some of the roles that you're in now. And then I'll just pause here with another question for the chat. Are there any compensation or benefit questions that you've wondered about? Love for you to put them in the chat. We might not get to them today, but I'd be curious to know what you all want to know about benefits and compensation. And then if, I can send an email or help out with some of those questions that come up. All right. And I'll keep us moving along. All right. So employee relations. This is the area of HR that supports conflict resolution and issues that come up in the workplace, and sometimes just not the sunny side of HR. Um, so when you bring together many different personalities and working styles, there really is bound to be some sort of conflict, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. There will be conflict. So employee relations may really help settle conflicts between either two employees that are not getting along or between an employee and their manager that's having, communication issues. And they do this by serving as a mediator and providing coaching to those involved parties. In employee relations, you might help a manager through a performance issue with an employee. And as mentioned before, in that employee life cycle example, employee relations will also be involved in creating and maintaining the employee handbook. And then they'll get involved as well if there are breaches of said handbook or any misconduct in the workplace. So this area might be good for you if you like investigating, you don't shy away from conflict. You might be the person in your family that will face conflict head on, and you enjoy that. Um, and that you have some knowledge or interest in employment law. Employment law understanding is really important due to the risk and legal implications of actions taken to address issues with employees. So you want to make sure that those actions are within legal compliance. Then if you're looking for a job in this area, many of the roles will likely have employee or labor relations in the title. And then you can be in employee relations at any level. You might be an analyst, a specialist, a manager, but you'll likely want to look for employee relations or labor relations in the job title. All right, moving on to HR technology and people analytics. This is the area of HR that supports HR data and human resources systems. And I'm going to list here what these acronyms stand for. The first one being Human Resources Information Systems, that's HRIS. Human Capital Management, which is HCM. And Human Resources Management Systems. So these are the different systems that can hold people data for your company, or really help process some of the day-to-day administration of whether it be benefits, compensation, your performance review. Those will all sit in one of these systems. On the left side here is a few examples of the data you might provide if you are working as a data analyst within HR. And this data is really used to help the company make important people decisions for the company. So for example, the statistic here that 5 out of 15 employees have a commute that's longer than 1 hour. This may help the company to decide on whether to let employees work remotely. The statistic that 75% of employees work in the Los Angeles office may help the company decide whether to host a company-wide town hall in person or to do it virtually because some people won't be able to attend. And then the stat that 87% of employees are enrolled in company benefits really informs the company that employees rely on their health benefits for their families and are really utilizing the benefit packages. They're not just there and no one's using them. So you can see this data really helps to shape some of the decisions that are made at the company, and really helps the company understand their people that they have working there. And you might see some of these roles in the market called HRIS analyst. You might see an HR technology manager or a people analytics consultant. All right, so I'll pose another question for the group. Feel free to just put your answers in the chat. Um, who here has done an employee feedback survey or an employee engagement survey? can just put yes on both. Okay, many have. Yep, yep. I'm seeing a lot of yeses in the chat. Okay, great. So it sounds like many of you have. So if you have, nope, not quite yet. If you have, I want to just quickly touch on that area of what you might do as a HR technology or people analytics employee for an engagement survey. And if you don't know what an engagement survey is, it's usually done to get an understanding of how people feel about different aspects of the company and really collect feedback from employees. So if you've ever done one of those, have you ever wondered about how that data gets analyzed? Well, a lot of the time, if you work in the people analytics role, you might be responsible for analyzing that data that comes from that survey. And if you have a lot of people at your company, it can be a lot of data, but it gives really great feedback on how employees are feeling. So it's really valuable work. And that's just one example of, from the employee side, you might not really think about filling out an engagement survey and how the data gets used. But in HR technology or people analytics, you will be the one really helping to support what the results will show to the company. All right. So moving on to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The DE&I team works to ensure a fair and inclusive and accessible workforce. It it makes sure that the employees at the company, and especially those that have been historically underrepresented or under-resourced, have what they need to be engaged and succeed in their role. And then there are other community and philanthropic areas of DE&I that help the community as well. So starting with community and philanthropy engagement, they might help support, initiatives out in the community, like volunteer events. Um, you might work with community outreach, and then you might help with company sponsorships. Um, the next one, employee resource groups, which we touched on in the employee life cycle. You might help develop and run these employee resource groups. And these are typically affinity groups that are based on gender, race, religion, or even common interests. You could have a sports employee resource group. Next, companies might release a CSR report, which stands for Corporate Social Responsibility. And this provides details on how a company impacts people in the world and the planet. The DE&I team might be involved with, providing employee demographics, including gender and race representation, and then it might assess the overall, employee experience in that report. And that report will go out to both external people who are out in the world and then internal employees for them to know about the work that the company is doing for corporate social responsibility. And then lastly, the DE&I team might help to put together and enhance the overall values and beliefs that shape the organization and really the DE&I strategy. It's likely to be embedded in really all areas of the business, but it really helps to put that strategy together so that when decisions are made, they have a DE&I lens when they're making those decisions. All right. All right, we're coming up on some of our last few areas, with workplace health and safety and compliance, it's an area that helps to ensure the safety and security of employees in the workplace. They work to enforce, the standards that allow employees to work in the safest way possible. And you might see this area of HR is more prevalent in maybe blue collar industries where there's a lot of equipment use and physical labor where it can pose a threat to employee safety. So the policies and procedures that are implemented and enforced in the workplace likely have to be aligned with, or they really do have to be aligned with local, state, and federal laws. So your work in this area of HR is also aligning those safety procedures with the laws. I'm going to have or go through a few examples here. For safe equipment use, um, you might have postings up in your company about how to drive a forklift safely, and so HR might have those signs posted. They might have guidelines written in the handbook, but it's making sure that people that are driving forklifts within maybe a warehouse are doing it safely. For reducing environmental risk, an example of this would be, making sure that badges are used to gain entry into the workplace and ensure that, strangers and non-employees are not allowed to enter the building. Another example of this is the implementation of policies and procedures, including, making sure that employee handbooks are up to date and they include information about who to reach out to if you need some help. And then lastly, risk management for the company. This area is making sure that people have the right licenses and certifications to work at the business. And for example, you might be a therapist and you're licensed to work in a certain state, and the company might make sure that you have that license for the state and you're not taking on clients in a different state. So roles in this area might include becoming an HR safety coordinator. You might be an HR safety specialist as well, or you could even be a manager in this area of HR. But with this area, you might not see it as much, maybe in a corporate environment as you would see in, maybe a blue collar industry or in a warehouse. But the compliance piece is needed throughout all areas of the industry. All right, and lastly, to close off, the HR generalist and HR business partner role. It truly is the jack of all trades in HR. You are truly in a role that supports all areas of HR that we just covered. And it is the direct line to employees, teams, management, and leadership, as you can see here. And this role can look completely different depending on where you work, what industry you're in, what company you're at. You might be one of two HR employees at a company, and you're responsible for all the different aspects of HR that we just talked about. And your role is an HR business partner. Or you might work at a really large company and you have all of these HR specialties that sit on different teams. And as an HR business partner, you are the conduit between HR specialties and the business. So to give you an example of this from our employee life cycle, that same manager that gave you a promotion or that gave an employee a promotion comes to you as their HR business partner and says, hey, I have a person on my team, they are ready for a promotion. So as the HR business partner, you might ask, some questions like what should be, their next level role? Do you want them to be in leadership? Are they going to be a manager? Do they need training for the new role? What are their weaknesses? What do we want to work on when they get into their new role? And maybe even how long, they've been at the company. So you can then take that information as an HR business partner, and you might connect with the talent development team and ask if they have more information on when the next promotion cycle is. Um, Maybe they might be holding prior performance history on employees, and you'd like to read through what their prior performance has been like. Um, and then maybe you'll ask, hey, do we have any training at the company for people who are going into leadership roles? So you then also might connect with compensation. With a promotion, typically comes an increase in salary. So you might connect with the compensation team to see if there are guidelines around how much to give in the promotion. And they might help you model out what managers at the company make, whether they're early in their career as a manager or later in their career. And they might help you put together what a promotion might look like from a salary perspective. You then package all this information up that you've gotten from talent development and compensation, and you bring it back to the manager, as you can see flowing through here. And the manager is so excited. He gets to talk to their employee and let them know the exciting news of their promotion. And this can flow in the same way from HR specialties to the organization. The talent development team might have a performance management program that annually managers have to fill out the performance on their employees. And so the talent development team may ask an HR generalist or HR business partner to go to a leadership meeting and talk to leadership about this program that is starting up at the end of the year. So this area of HR might be great for you if you aren't in HR right now, but you have really good business acumen, or you kind of understand how the business runs, and you would be a great partner to leadership or different teams. And you have a strategic mindset. You can think kind of above the nuances of day to day, but you really want to make sure that teams are functioning well and that managers have what they need to have really great high performing teams. You may also enjoy, connecting the puzzle pieces at work and bringing all things together and collaborating with many different groups. And then you might also be a really good communicator. As I said, you're likely going back and forth with different pieces of information and having to package that for different groups. So that might be a good area if you like to communicate. Maybe you're in a project management role currently. It might be a good area for you. And then listed here at the bottom, a few potential jobs. You'll see a lot of different roles named different things for this, but you could be an HR coordinator. Maybe you're just starting off in your career and really just wanting to get an understanding of the generalist area. You could be an HR manager, as you mentioned, an HR business partner, people advisor, a talent consultant, or an HR generalist. All right. Well, I want to leave some time for Q&A. So I'll quickly touch on education here. And I want to note that education and certifications are not typically, required for roles. You don't have to be a licensed HR professional to work in HR. And that's what makes it a great career path if you want to start or transition into education. And sorry, into HR. And education can actually help you in a few different ways, though, education and certifications, including networking. You might, join a program where you get to connect with other people who are learning about HR and learning about the HR discipline. And it can help you kind of learn from one another And then you might hear about, open roles at different companies through that networking. They can also help you, increase your salary and compensation as you improve your knowledge in the HR field. So, having a certification on your resume might, help you gain more salary as your company rewards you for getting a new certification. It can also help you on the job with coaching leaders and really helping employees you know, navigate the different events that happen in their life cycle. And it really helps you become an expert in your role. Knowledge is power in that sense. And then lastly, if you go do something that is really innovative, or you go to a conference or get a certification in an area that is up and coming, maybe in HR technology, you can really bring valuable insights to the company because the HR landscape is changing year over year. Some companies are now using cloud for their people data. There's always changes that are coming up or new ways to do and run an HR department. So getting an education or certifications might help you bring some of those valuable insights. All right, and I just wanted to point out the SHRM certification listed here. Just about I would say the SHRM and the PHR are two highly recognized certifications in HR. If it's something that you want to dive into or really want to get a good understanding of, these two would be great to look into. The typical timing is self-paced. You can take it at any time, but you usually want to study up for about 6 months to a year, um, to make sure that you have a good understanding and are ready for that exam. And then Oleg is going to provide these slides after, so I won't go through all of the different certifications here on this slide, but please feel free to reach out with any questions that you have around developing your skills. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch on a couple of tips and takeaways from this presentation about, transitioning or starting your career in HR. First, make sure that your resume highlights, those transferable skills that you might have. Everyone has worked as an employee. They know what it's like to work as an employee, whether you've, babysat at a neighbor's house, or you've worked at the ice cream shop in college, or maybe you managed a Fortune 500 company. You know what it's like to be an employee. So it's great to use those experiences and perspectives to guide you in your interviews for HR roles. Um, Next, expand your search to various industries. Make sure that you're looking at different areas that you might not have looked at before. Next, again, use your network and ask for informational interviews. If you're not sure about an area of HR, or you're not sure if the role is right for you, ask for an informational interview where you get to interview someone and ask them about the work that they do on the day to day. Maybe you shadow somebody at your company just to get an idea of what it might look like to work in HR. Next, expand your applications. Apply even if you don't check every single box in the job posting. A lot of the time, as I mentioned, you can transfer some of your skills into being a great HR person. And if you can speak to those skills, you might be more qualified than you think. Then you want to seek out HR related tasks in your current role, or you can volunteer or take on an internship. Um, if you're working on your team and you'd like to put together a project where you all take a personality assessment and then you facilitate a conversation about each of your personalities on the team, that is HR work, specifically organizational effectiveness, that you can then speak to when you are interviewing for HR roles. And then lastly, be open to various roles and HR disciplines. You just don't know, what area might strike you as the right place for you. As Oleg mentioned, I worked in three different areas of HR. I've done talent management, talent acquisition, and compensation. And then now, as my work as a generalist, I get to put all of those pieces together. So be open and, like I said, be sure to look out for different opportunities that, might strike you as interesting or, helpful for your career. Right. Well, I just want to say thank you to you all for listening. This has been a really great time. Thank you for all of your messages in the chat as well. You've all been very responsive. And I'd like to open it up for Q&A. Please feel free to add in any questions that you have there.
So we do have questions in the Q&A. Some of them were covered by the presentation, but I think we can review and repeat as necessary, so that
Sounds good.
the ideas from the presentation can be further reiterated. So the first one is kind of a general question. What are some concerns or challenges working in the HR profession?
Yeah, that's a great question. So working in the HR space, you have a lot of responsibility to make sure that employees are taken care of. So some concerns or risks that might happen working in HR is that you might not handle a situation in the right way as an HR professional. You learn as you go as an HR professional, but there can be a lot of risks to managing an employee experience in the wrong way. So a lot of the time as you're starting off in your HR professional career, you'll have a manager that you can go to help guide you on different scenarios. You'll want to check in with different areas of HR to make sure, the promotion that we're providing is warranted and has been vetted by different areas. So yeah, it's just making sure that you're communicating and asking questions when you're really not sure as an HR professional, because there can be risks with managing an employee's experience in the wrong way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we've had a few questions about this, and I think you covered this partially in one of the last slides there, but how do you get started in HR without previous HR experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would definitely go towards those tips and takeaways. But when I first started in HR, I had interviewed for a couple of roles. I actually interviewed at a staffing company to become a recruiter, and this was before COVID. I had been, working with um, a recruiter. I actually went into the office and did a shadowing day where I got to look at what the role would actually be like. And I actually got this sinking feeling that it might not be the best role for me. There was a lot of cold calling and reaching out to companies to see if they had staffing needs. And I just realized it probably wasn't the right role for me, and I actually withdrew from that process. Um, but I think the one piece there is just that you want to make sure that you are going into an area of HR that you are excited about and passionate about, but you also want to make sure that you're open to different opportunities. I ended up getting an HR coordinator role a few weeks later that really just made me passionate about HR and really helped me, see where my career could go in HR. So, one, knowing yourself. Being sure that you're following your gut feeling and taking on roles that you think you'll be excited and passionate about. But on the other side, be open, be willing to try something new. And as I mentioned, volunteer, maybe take on an internship, shadow. Those are kind of low stakes ways to get into HR without having, taking on a brand new role.
Or yeah, if you don't have experience, then at least you'll know whether the skills you have match with the kind of the job
Exactly.
that you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think this question came in during the slide with the circle in the middle and the different functions on the
Yeah.
sides. So are there companies that have all of this? I've never seen most of this, and I used to work at a best place to work place.
Yeah, that's a great question. So at a company, you might not have all of those different areas broken out as teams. You might just be a learning and development professional that works on the talent development team. Or you might just work with succession planning as a talent development professional. So you might not see the teams completely broken out on all of those different areas, but certain employees at the company, certain HR employees at the company might specialize in those areas and really support those programs as they come out throughout the year. So succession planning might happen once a year, and at that time of the year, that's the part of your job that you get to work in for talent development. And then a couple months later, you might work to help a manager, put together their team in an effective way. So it depends on the company, but those are just different areas that you can work or specialize in within talent development.
So it sounds like that individual people might take on several functions
Yeah,
if
yeah,
there's not several different
exactly.
teams broken out.
Yeah,
So the next question is kind of a yes or no question, but I think you could probably offer a little bit uh, more information
yeah.
or expand on it. Would employee relations use mediation skills?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, so employee relations typically is, working to mediate a conflict. So they would use those mediation skills. So, you might have an employee and another employee who disagree on something that happened on a project, and they can't come to a conclusion or get to, a good point of moving forward. So you might, as an employee relations partner, come in and help mediate a conversation between the two, and then help maybe a manager come to a decision without making one employee feel like they've been singled out or were wrong in the scenario, or the other employee feel the same. It's really just making sure that conflicts are resolved in a healthy way in the workplace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you please explain what the qualifications generally are for the different types of HR position, or does training usually happen on the job? I think actually a
Yeah.
good way to think about this is how much training does happen on the job for HR positions.
Yeah, and likely as you're breaking into the HR world, there's really jobs at every level within each of the specialties that I talked about. So you might start as I mentioned, in recruiting as a coordinator, and you might not actually be doing all of the sourcing and interviewing with the hiring manager, but as I mentioned, you might help with scheduling interviews and really just breaking into the area. And then through that, you might be learning alongside with a recruiter who's teaching you on how to interview, how to manage managers who want to hire this great person, but they probably aren't a good fit for the role, how to influence. So you might be just working within a team as you start off in HR that's helping you to grow those experiences. But, as I mentioned, you can have a lot of business acumen that is transferable to HR. So don't necessarily have to start at an entry level role. If you know this is a great way to manage a team, and I've done maybe a course on it, or I've had my own team as a manager, you can transfer those skills to help coach other managers on how to build their own teams. And there might be programs in place to help you do that. You might have a deck that your company already has put together, and your job is to really just facilitate the discussion and the conversation around how to build out a great team. So this will depend on different companies, where you are in your career. But really, it's just making sure that the skills that you have can transfer to working in HR. And then there are probably a couple of things that you'll want to get education on, or do a training on to really become an expert in that role.
Thank you. Do people
Yeah.
working in the department, I think this question came in during the analytics slide.
Yeah.
Do
Great
the
question.
people working in this department help create tools to find the data?
It's a great question. Sometimes they do. Sometimes you will work with your technology team, which sits outside of HR, to put together these tools, but it truly depends. There are a lot of data analysis tools that are out there nowadays that companies will employ to use for their HR data. You might have heard of Tableau or Vizier. Like, they're different analytical tools that can be used. So you don't necessarily have to put together from scratch a whole system or program. A lot of companies like to use Excel as well. But it is good to be good with numbers and really have an understanding and an interest in technology, and how to advance technology. A lot of the time, you're dealing with a lot of numbers, especially if you have a lot of employees. So, you might be slicing and dicing some of the data, but nowadays there are some great tools to help you kind of use data analytics to tell a story.
Cool, thank you. So it's at 15 minutes after 12, so we're at time now. There are still a lot of great questions in
Yeah.
the Q&A, and so for that, because we're at time, I would encourage folks, you have your questions, email Shireen. She's happy to receive your questions and she'll respond at, obviously, at her time, since responding is not her job, her full-time job. So it might take a little time, but she will respond to your questions, and I will post her email address in the follow-up email. So please save your questions. We are limited time, so we can't answer all the questions today, but I would like to thank Shireen very much for this very informative presentation. This was great. I learned a lot about HR, and I hope the folks out there also did. And thank you for taking the time to answer the questions that folks had.
Thank you all for joining today. And it was just wonderful to be able to tell you more about HR. And as Oleg mentioned, please feel free to email me on any questions that you have. I'm happy to support.
And I just posted a post-event survey in the chat. If you have a moment, it probably takes about 2 minutes to fill out that survey, and I would very much appreciate it. With that, once again, thank you, Shireen, and to everybody out there, we'll see you next time.